Good morning and hello. I'm Deidre Pachnad, Workboard CEO, and I am delighted to welcome you to the March Workboard Community Call. For those of you new to the call, this is a regular conversation we try to have every month with the Workboard user community. And in this conversation, we focus on what features are coming in the pike in the next few weeks and what's coming in the next few months after that, just to give you visibility and the horizon on how the app is evolving. We have the calls every month. I think we must be on, I don't know, maybe our 18th community call now, and that's reflective of the frequency with which we deliver new features, enhancements, and upgrades to Workboard. The conversation today will start a little serious. I usually start with my views on the market and what we're hearing from senior executives on trends in business. But since it's almost spring and it's Friday morning, I'm going to start with trivia instead and share with you how we code name our apps, our releases of the app. The code name that we're working on right now and the release that I'm going to share with you today is called Golden Pavilion. And what we choose epic landmarks or natural wonders for our code names, some of the most beautiful places in the world, whether they're creations of nature or they're creations of man. And we code name each release with one of these fabulous places. So this month, the person who chooses these amazing wonders is Dennis Goodwin, who is our UX designer and a product manager. Many of you have probably spoken to him on the phone. He does and leads a lot of the design and interaction efforts for Workboard. So a shout out to Dennis for both choosing great natural wonders and really doing his best to make Workboard wonderful for you. In the Golden Pavilion release, the theme for us, the focus is really on improving the elegance and interaction on most of the core features, so goals, meetings, and action items. And I've got some cool stuff to talk to you about in all three areas. In addition to the enhancements on goals, meetings, and actions, we're doing some improvements on on-ramping and IT policy to make the IT organizations, especially in corporate settings, make their life a little bit easier on administrating large Workboard implementations. So without further ado, let me jump into what's in this Golden Pavilion release. So the first chunk is making it more fun to achieve goals. And so you will find in the first week of April a goal timeline that gives you an annualized view of your goals. So many of you will take your Q1 goals and copy the goal and tune or adjust the metrics for Q2. And this timeline will let you see that progress over the course of the year. So the example you're seeing, the first goal for Carl is to enable our line of business teams to be effective anywhere and everywhere. He achieved 100% progress on that goal in the first quarter, and he's at 35% in the second quarter. And you see the timeline across the top. What the timeline also does is let us have and show goals that have various time bands. So it may be for a quarter, some may be for 6 months, they may be of different lengths, but you get a view of your year and the goals as they progress over the course of that year. So that is actually something we're really excited about, and it'll come in this next Golden Pavilion release. The next one I know you will all appreciate, and that is real-time updates on your metrics when those metrics are sourced from work streams. So if you've got a work stream that's got 50 items on it, you marked 3 done today, that felt really good. You want your metrics to update automatically and instantly so you can go look at your progress on your goal timeline. So that real-time updating will happen in this Golden Pavilion release as well. And I don't know why Microsoft didn't number this list the way you'd think it would, but my second #1 feature for goals is enhancing the goal flow. So if you've used the goal dependency flow, and as you unfurl it farther, we're going to optimize that a little bit, make it just a little easier to use, and make the text of the goals just a little bit more visible. So that'll get a little bit of spiff. In theory, you'll only notice how much you like it. You won't notice what changed. For those of you who are using goals, you may not have yet noticed, but you're probably about to need a feature that we shipped a week or so ago, where you can copy a goal and then modify the metrics for it. You'll find that on the hamburger menu or the kebab menu for goals. So as you're getting ready to set up for your Q2, you'll find that very handy. So let me turn now to action items. There's a bunch of changes going on in action items, and they're each of themselves is kind of a minor thing, but collectively they should add up to a lot of convenience. So the first one is, as you assign an action item to somebody, instead of having to scroll through the whole list to find a person's name, you can just start to type their name and we'll find the match, and you can pick it from the list. So as your teams get larger, this will get simpler to assign action items to others. The next is a new concept entirely, and that's the notion of sending an action item in a sense privately, just assigning it to somebody without putting it into a public work stream and without the need to create a private work stream. So in that context, now you'll be able to assign an action item to somebody without choosing a work stream first. If you don't choose a work stream to put the action item in other words, if you don't choose to put the action item in a public work stream, it will simply default as a private request. So you don't need to choose a work stream. When you don't choose one, the action will be sent as a private request, and that private request will show for the recipient on their My Work page. It'll show under the obvious named Request for Me list. And when they look at it, they'll see, instead of work stream, they'll see private request. For the person who assigned the action item, of course, it will show up on the list of things they've delegated to others, and they'll be able to see and find it there. That notion of not specifying a work stream extends to things like when you email an action item into the system, then you want to assign it. You don't need to name the work stream. When you text an action item in and you don't want to assign it, again, you won't need to name the work stream. So it should get a lot more convenient to drop items into the app. And for those of you who manage people, it will be easier to send one-to-one action items that are private and specific to the person that you're assigning them to, and not something that you want to share with a broader team. The next thing that's changing on action items is the default due date will set to today. Right now it defaults to no due date. And as people's lists of actions get longer, and as they start to use things like emailing actions and texting them, and they do more on their phone, having a bunch of items with no due dates on them that fall to the bottom of their list is less convenient than we'd like it to be. So now the due date will default to today, and for most of you, that will make it easier to find and move on your today list or your this week list than it is to find it somewhere at the bottom of the All My Work list without a date on it. And then the next one, which is heavily requested, is we've added in the loop to iPhone action items. And I think we've submitted that to Apple to drop. We don't know how fast things move through their process, but I would say you could also expect to see a new iPhone release with the in the loop feature also the first week of April, maybe sooner. And of course, if it's sooner, you'll see an alert on your phone about that. But you'll be able to add people to the loop from your iPhone. The next piece is meetings. So meetings are wildly popular, and we're super excited about that. It's so exciting to see how much people use meetings, how they use them. People use them in wildly different ways. So some of you use meetings personally to take a bunch of notes, and you're the only person in the meeting or the conversation who's using Workboard meetings. But you like the structure of being able to capture and go back to and have, if you will, a journal of notes. Others of you use it as group collective meetings, and there are multiple people doing takeaways at the same time. So the If you haven't seen it yet, again, we've dropped or released a couple weeks ago a way to build faster agendas. So if you haven't experienced this or found it yet, give this a try. You can now create agendas and run meetings without inviting other people, which means you can use it as a note-taking tool and prepare draft agendas or private agendas. The next one is you can start typing a topic, and as you type the first few characters, Workboard will find action items and goals that match your text, and you can just pick those and put them on the agenda for the meeting. So if you're doing a project in the IT organization to migrate a bunch of apps to the cloud, and you've got 2 goals that say that and 13 deliverables, and the meeting's about cloud, just type cloud in a topic and you'll see a list of everything that matches, and just pick it off and easily put it on the agenda. You can do that actually far more conveniently than you used to be able to. So as you're typing your topic, check that out and build your agendas faster. That you have today. What is coming in the first week of April is a much easier way to capture takeaways and assign those as action items. So what we're doing is, as you're typing a takeaway, if you type follow up from the community call and set up the presentation for next month, and I'm typing that out and I want to assign that to Stephanie, I just type @Stephanie, and Workboard then knows, okay, we're creating an action item in addition to a takeaway, and we're going to assign the action item to Stephanie. I don't need to pick a work stream anymore, but if I want to put it in a work stream, when I hit the hashtag or the pound sign and I start typing, for example, COM, like for community calls, Workboard will find the work streams that match my characters, and I can pick one of those off the list. So that without ever moving your fingers off the keyboard, as you're typing the takeaway, you can also type and use typing as a way to turn that takeaway into an action item. I think that will make it far more convenient to both capture takeaways and assign them in the same path in your meetings. I know some of you visited with a customer maybe 2 weeks ago, really heavy meeting users, and they had 41 action items from a meeting. And of course, it's just not workable to pop up the action item details for every one of those action items as they progress the meeting. So this convenience should be, well, it should make them lightning fast, so we're excited about that. The other feature there is a lot of times in, for example, a staff meeting, there'll be an action that the leader wants to assign to everybody on the staff. And so we want to make that really easy to do as well. So as you're typing the action item and you type, for example, and you start typing an R, as you see in a little screen snippet there, it'll show you everyone whose name starts with R, and you can select multiple people. Or just type @ and it'll show you people, and you can select multiple people. And what it'll do is it'll copy that action to everyone that you select. So that by typing once, you are creating 2, 3, or 4 action items all in the same path. So again, for staff meetings where the leader's asking everyone to do the same thing, that should be more convenient as well. Everybody's got both the takeaways from the meeting and the actions that hit their action item list that they can follow through on more easily. Or if you use right now email and you email your action items into Workboard, you'll know that there's a set of conventions when you forward an email to yourself in Workboard. You can use the subject line to assign it to somebody else, to put it in a work stream, to give it a due date. Those conventions are the exact same conventions we'll use in the meeting setting itself. And for those of you that didn't know that you can forward actionable email into Workboard, if you want to know the specifics on how to do that and where to find your Workboard email address, you can just post a little question for us in chat, and we will send you the secret decoder ring to that. It's incredibly handy to take those actions out of email and move them to a list. Okay, so the next set of things on the meeting list are the last meeting agendas and actions. It was a little bit buggy in I should say buggy, a little bit mangled in how we executed that in the last one. It wasn't quite clear whether it was the agenda or the actions or some of each or none of each. And so we're going to clean that up a little bit so it's just more obvious the difference between agenda and actions from the last meeting. So look for a cleanup there. Some of you have asked for the ability to do daily stand-ups and a daily meeting cadence. So that will also be a feature in this next release. And then we're shifting things around a little bit. So as you know, the bullet list to the left of your topics and takeaways is actually clickable. And when you click it, you can use a set of symbols to indicate whether something is a decision, a note, or was resolved. And what we're doing there is we're putting action item on that same list so that it's a little more obvious how you declare something an action item. And obviously, it's the plus sign is a good visual cue that you have turned something into an action item. So that'll be just, I think, a little bit more obvious and intuitive. Some of you may not yet have found that bullet list is clickable. Give it a try. It's actually quite satisfying to select decision for the bullet and lock and load a decision in a meeting. The last piece in this release that is sort of worth calling out or itemizing is that we're doing some work to simplify how you manage teams. And that's a little bit plumbing, to be honest, which is, you know, sort of behind the curtain that you won't see. But and of course, you can have teams where nobody reports to anybody, but it's a team of people who've come together to work on something. And so the part of the challenge is that's always been labeled team in Workboard, and we didn't distinguish between which kind of team it was. And so sometimes it was confusing for people who were expecting just the formal organization structure, and it's equally confusing for people who were only expecting to find informal team collaboration. So what we're going to do is change the labels, make it a little clearer. This is a department, this is the finance function, and this other team is the cross-org collaboration team that is finance and product management and operations working on a new pricing model. And that's not a reporting organization or a function, it's just a team of people working on a shared initiative. So we'll do some label changes there that make that more obvious. What's the department and the organization structure, and what are the informal collaboration teams or the cross-functional collaboration teams? And then along with that, simplify how you add people to those teams. And you'll see things like department manager and team lead, and separating those things out. So it should get a little bit easier and more obvious how the team structure works. We're going to continue to do a lot of work there in how those are created, how you view and experience them, and so on. That's an area where this is a baby step. There's a lot more, and I think significant things we can do to make them easier to visualize, easier to stand up a team, easier to put members on a team, and so on. So starting step here, and lots more to come on team management. So everything I've just talked about is slated for the Golden Pavilion release, which will be a trivia question later. The Golden Pavilion release, which will be the week of, or the first week of April, and you should look for it. Then, of course, we'll send out an email that itemizes and gives you little tours and snippets of how the pieces work. But we are excited about lots of detail improvements in meetings and action items and goals. In Q2, and by that I mean really predominantly in May, we have an iPad app coming. Finally, and we are so excited about that, but it is a big deal. The design of it is all complete. Coding is started. It's an iPad native app. I've done a lot of work to make sure that it will sing both on the iPad Pro and on the iPad Mini, which, as you know, are very different surfaces, but we're really excited about that. I'm going to show you a little animation of what that looks like in a second. And then there's some more work, as I said, on interactive organization and being able to visualize your team and organization structure, not just see it in a list. And as you all know, we have a long list, an endless list of enhancements, and we're just working through those day by day. So the iPad, I think, yeah, this is going to run by itself. So meetings and goals will be in the iPad app, along with all the other pieces that you would expect to see, but it'll be full featured with Workboard Elite and Elite Enterprise. So you'll be able to do all those things that you do in the most complete version of Workboard on your iPad right from the beginning. There's some, this is just a little animation, but there's some nifty improvements in my work. Checklists will be on the surface. Attachments will show as thumbnails. It's, I think, going to be pretty neat and pretty handy for people, and obviously awesome in a meeting setting and awesome as an executive dashboard. Okay, that was the flyby of what's coming in Golden Pavilion and what's coming shortly after that. So let me ask you if you have any questions, and you can post those questions using the little control panel for GoToWebinar, and feel free to pop your question up. I'm happy to answer it if I can, or follow up later if I cannot answer it now. And yeah, let me know how you feel about the stuff coming in Golden Pavilion. So one question is, I don't think the in the loop from Apple has been made public. That's completely true. We've dropped to Apple. Apple takes however long Apple takes to drop it out to the public. So, and what we'll probably do is send an announce on that, because it's a popular feature for sure. But it is not yet out. It should be out, I would say, no later than the first week of April. Next one, love the new action item takeaway creation feature for meetings. Bill, thank you very much. We're really excited about that. Let's see, would love it if we could assign ownership of team goals to individual team members. We assign champions for each objective. Okay, good one. I probably need to double click on that and maybe have a next level conversation with maybe include Dennis, so we understand the nuance of that more. But a cool idea. I like the champions thing. So let's dig into that a little bit more. Next one is any work going on with the responsiveness of the site, speed of the site? Absolutely. So we did a set of fixes for several pages that we shipped last week. So this is terrible to say, we reduced the load time on several of the goals pages by 7 seconds. There's a ton of work going on performance, a ton, and we aren't done, and we are continuing to focus on it. It's really at the top of our list. You'll note that in March, the only real feature enhancements that we put out were related to copying goals. All the other work we did in March was around doing systemic work on performance and optimizing performance. It's a big deal. As we added more visualizations, and over the course of this quarter, we added a lot more visualizations. As we added those things, and as our user community grew slightly faster than we expected, the system slowed down, and we obviously have a lot of work to do to fix that, catch that up, and we're working it. Let's see. And by the way, one of the other things we did on responsive, which is a little bit different than for system performance, is in meetings and takeaways, we implemented real-time interaction. So now if 2 people or 3 people are doing takeaways at the same time, you can all see the real-time comments, real-time takeaways being added by others as you type. Very much, well, the same as Google Docs. So if you haven't used or played around with that yet, it's kind of cool. We'll take that real-time interaction and move it to more places in the app as well, which I think will also be cool. Okay. Are you looking for iPad beta testers? Chris, you're at the top of my list for that. Absolutely. It has your name all over it. So we appreciate that. We will reach out to you for specifically for that. It's definitely possible to be an iPad beta tester. Yes, to everybody else who just said me too. Okay. Is there a recommended browser that Workboard works in best? Yes, Chrome is the preference we have. Let's see. Suggestion, create workstream within a workstream. Aha, nested. We've been toying with that for a long time. I hear you. There's a balance of complexity and simplicity, but it's a good suggestion. Let's see. Yes, a copy of the presentation will be provided. And let's see. Okay, now we have the entire iPad beta community, which is fantastic. It's really fun. Thank you. Another one, we hold a team huddle meetings every day. Is it possible to build in a feature for that? I'd love to follow up on that. So we added, in this next release, Golden Pavilion, we are adding a daily cadence. What would be good is to have another conversation about what would make the huddle most effective. What are the activities, behaviors, how does your meeting go? And I think that's a great one. So Chris, we will reach out to get a deeper dive from you on how you run those meetings, and we'll try and incorporate that. It's the daily huddle, the daily stand-up is a common activity and a common request. Can more analytics be created to show overall time towards completion of an action item? Yeah, I think you mean maybe Gantt-like chart that shows work starts on the 1st and ends on the 15th, for example. I think that's what you may be referring to. I'll circle back after the meeting and get more clarification, but we actually have done some initial designs and have had a lot of internal conversations about how to show duration in addition to progress on an action item. It would be good to have another level of conversation. I think we'll do that this year, and maybe even try and get it in before the end of summer. But it'd be good to get input from people on Gantt charts, duration of work, and so on, and get feedback there so we have direct input on it and can optimize accordingly. Yep, okay. I think I've answered most of the questions that are kind of public-directed questions. Obviously, if, oh, somebody just asked, is the feature that lets you assign action items without choosing a work stream available now, or is it in the next release? It's in the next release. It's in Golden Pavilion, so the first week of April. All right. Okay, I think that is most of the questions. Thank you for the active questions and all the volunteers for feedback on some of the meeting stand-ups and on the iPad beta stuff. We really appreciate that. We will follow up with you and get that formalized instruction. We really, really want and appreciate your feedback and your input. And hopefully you know and you trust that we use your input and your time wisely and try and incorporate it into the product as quickly and as well as we can. With that, let me flip to new resources that you might find interesting. One of those is a new paper from us called Radical Clarity, and the other is a book by Christina Wadke called Radical Focus. The Radical Clarity paper reflects a lot of the experiences we, and I in particular, have been having over the past 6 months or so, where I find this really direct relationship between leaders saying that they need more accountability from their people and people saying they need more clarity from their leaders. So when people don't understand the results that you are asking for from them, they have little ability to deliver those results. And there's this opportunity to drive clarity and accountability as if they are twins, as opposed to believing you can drive accountability without clarity. So the Radical Clarity paper just talks about that dynamic and some approaches you can take. It's particularly true in transformation environments where the leader would like people to do new behaviors and new things and to reach to new results. It's especially important then to drive total clarity on what those results are if you intend to achieve them. And by total clarity, I mean for the people who do the work. And then the other one, for those of you who haven't seen it or had a chance to grab it, Radical Focus is a book by Christina Wadke on objectives and key results, or OKRs. She does a wonderful job of telling a story on of a company that doesn't have focus and tries to do everything, or has fundamentally misalignment between the team, members of the team, and leaders of the team on what the company should do and be when it grows up. Her storytelling is compelling. It's a great way to understand the power of things like OKRs through really the power of her storytelling. If you would like a copy of Radical Focus, and drop us a note and we will drop you a copy of it. If you would like a copy of Radical Clarity, that's even easier because we'll give you that in an email. Radical Focus is a book, so we'll mail that out to you. I think with that, we are at the end of this call. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for using Workboard. Thank you for your feedback and your input. I hope you have an awesome Friday and happy spring. I hope it's sunny wherever you are.